and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 447, and today's date is August 21st, 2014, and the title of this episode is Warning, DHS Preparing for National Day of Rage. And before I get started, I just want to point out something, and I put the corrections on YouTube and on the report on the X22report.com site and on the People correction. When I was comparing the photos of Foley, one of the photos is Sokolov, so I just want to clear that up right now, that photo that I was comparing to was the wrong person. Sorry about that. I do apologize. But what I have been doing is I've been looking at this video, and I've posted it, an analysis that someone did about how there is no blood when they start cutting. Now, I counted how many times the knife went back and forth, and it's between 10 and 12 times that the knife went actually back and forth. And then I decided to go ahead and look for real decapitation videos. And let me tell you, it was very hard to look at. It is absolutely disgusting. But what I noticed in pretty much every single one of those videos, as soon as they start cutting, a gush of blood runs down the front of their shirt, and we did not see that in this video. And the other thing I did notice is that in the James Foley video, when they show the still shot of his head on top of the body, it's like slathered with blood everywhere. In every one of the other videos, blood gets nowhere on the head whatsoever. So I don't know. What I'm looking at right now is that this video is a fake. The big question is, why didn't they show it? If they really wanted the shock value and they're really that horrific, and this is a terrorist group that does a huge amount of atrocities, they would have showed it. I see it in other countries where they completely show it, and it's shown time and time again. And right now, using a two-camera shot, fading in, fading out, showing a still shot, something is not right with this whatsoever. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand that Europe right now is really completely imploding on itself. It is not getting better. It is absolutely getting worse. And what we're seeing is the Eurozone growth slows in July. Eurozone private business growth slowed more than expected this month, despite wide price cutting as manufacturing and service industry activity both dwindled. So we can see right now it is really getting bad in Europe, and they know this. They understand, the central bankers realize that this system is falling apart and they cannot stop it. And again, these food bans and these sanctions on Russia have escalated the destruction of the system, and it is really put into overdrive right now. And we can see that the illusion here in the United States is being really ramped up. I mean, it is full speed ahead that we are in this recovery, because they need to convince everyone. I keep seeing the Fed is out there, oh, we're going to raise interest rates, oh, we're going to raise interest rates, and they keep saying this over and over and over to make you believe that we're in this recovery. And if they push the interest rates up, it would completely devastate the entire economy. Now, right now, the Philly Fed surged to its highest since March of 2011. Against expectations of 19.3, Philly Fed printed at 28, highest since March. I mean, these are all-time new highs. And it all sounds fantastic, except 7 of 9 internal declined, including new orders tanked, employment tumbled, prices paid plunged, and prices received slumped. So in case you were wondering how it's possible that the Philly Fed surge, it's a complete mystery, because, again, everything looks terrible. Everything is declining. Everything is plunging, but yet it hit all-time new highs. Can anyone say manipulated? Now, we're seeing a lot of earnings come in from many different stores. We're seeing that Target, their profits are down 62%. Sears, traffic is dwindling. Second quarter loss, sluggish sales. Staples, they're closing 140 stores, and they're going to close more next year. They've already closed something like 80 already. And we can see right now that all of this is showing that the everyday person is not going out there and spending their money. They're holding on to it because, again, people just don't have jobs. They can't find the money. They don't have the discretionary disposable funds. They are just trying to make it every single month, paycheck to paycheck. Now, I see an interesting headline out there today on the corporate media letting us know that U.S. existing home sales rise for the fourth straight month. But what they don't tell you is that, yeah, they went up a little bit, but they're 4.3% lower than a year ago. So we went way down, and we had that little bump in the summer, and they're trying to make this out like we're in this recovery. But let's take a look at this for a second. Last year, our unemployment rate was at 7.2%. This year, it's at 6.2%. But home sales are 4.3% lower. Now, let's take a little closer look at where these sales are coming from. Well, if we look at houses around 100,000, it's down by negative 12.9%. If we look at houses between 100 and 250,000, it's about negative 3.4%. If we look at houses between 250,000 and 750,000, it looks like it's a negative 0.1%. And if we look at houses that are over $1 million plus, they're over 5%. So who's actually buying these houses? The very wealthy. The 1% are buying these mansions. The rest of the economy, the middle class, nothing. So we can see from this that this whole thing, this whole real estate myth, it is completely falling apart. And you have to remember, they're trying to convince us that everyone's buying houses in cash. They're not even using loans anymore. Yeah, that could be with the 1% where they're making a killing because they have inside information on the stock market and they're taking that cash and putting it into real estate. Hey, I saw this back up until 2008, and guess what happened after 2008? All those neighborhoods, once the market came down, completely deserted. Everybody was gone. And we're going to see the same exact thing. Now, here are a couple of stats that will show you that the middle class is completely being destroyed. This is coming out of the Economic Collapse blog. And right now, what we're seeing is typical American households is now worth 36% less than it was worth a decade ago. 1 out of every 7 Americans rely on food banks at this point. 1 out of every 4 military families needs help putting food on the table. 79% of the people that use food banks purchase inexpensive, unhealthy food just to have enough to feed their families. 1 out of every 3 adults in the United States has unpaid debt that is in collections. 40% of all households in the United States are experiencing financial stress right now. The overall home ownership rate has fallen to the lowest level since 1995. The home ownership rate for Americans under the age of 35 is still at an all-time low. 52% of all Americans cannot even afford the house that they are living in right now. Last year, 1 out of every 4 auto loans in the United States was made to someone with subprime credit. 1 out of every 6 men in their prime working age from 25 to 54, do not have a job at this point. 47% of unemployed Americans have completely given up looking for a job. 36% of Americans do not have a single penny saved for retirement. More than half of all working Americans make less than $30,000 a year in wages. In America today, 1 out of every 10 jobs is filled by a temp agency. So the middle class, the American people, we have been hit on. We are destroyed. The economy cannot be sustained by this 1% that is making all their money from insider trading and having the inside track. It cannot be done. Right now, we've been looted. Our wealth has been taken from us. We have no jobs, and if there's jobs out there, they're low-paying jobs. And I know this from many, many friends where they are being laid off. They cannot find jobs. They have resumes continually going out there, and they're hearing crickets. So what they're doing is they're reorganizing their resumes, hoping to get a lower-paying job, and they are still having a very rough time right now. Now, we talk a lot about the kill switch. And we know California has this bill which is sitting on the governor's desk getting ready to be signed that every phone needs to have a kill switch, and we know the United States has a bill that's floating around that every phone needs to have a kill switch. And it seems like in Ferguson they might have used some type of kill switch system. We know in the Boston bombing, DHS instructed these cell towers to be shut off so nothing could be transmitted, but again, those people still took pictures and things were transmitted. Now, it seems like the police in Ferguson, as protesters were, protesting peacefully, it seems like someone threw some type of kill switch which stopped all live stream feeds during the questionable police activity. The Argus live stream has been filming the protests nonstop for the last week, manned by a volunteer University of Missouri postgrad student. A week ago, grad student reported live, "We've just been told by the St. Louis Police Department to turn off our cameras." And he said, "We will not be turning off our cameras. We will continue to broadcast even if it is our own peril." So the cameras continue to film. And then we flash forward a week, and on early Wednesday morning, just after midnight, Argus had no choice in the matter as their feed was cut. They said something just completely shut down, and it continually said, "No signal, no signal, no signal." And as soon as the conflict happened, there was an overrunning of the media station by the protesters who were fleeing from the police. We don't know what the agitation was, but we do know that we lost our signal. We reset the broadcast 3 times, and it keeps saying no network error. Use of government kill switch during protests is precisely what civil liberty groups warned makes this technology so dangerous. It is important to note that this kill switch appears to have jammed the cell signal rather than shutting down the entire internet or specific digital equipment. The police created what appeared to be a 2-tiered free speech zone in Ferguson. Now, we talked about this quite a bit, where they're trying to convince us that we can only have free speech in certain areas. So what they did is they created a 2-tier system. One where the protesters are supposed to go, and the other one where the journalists are supposed to go. And guess what? No one pretty much went along with this. And of course, the police got tired of this, and they claimed that everyone must disperse and leave except for those corporate media that have credentials. Of course, it's the paid corporate media that the government controls. Those are the ones that can stay, but everyone else must leave. So we can see what is going on here. They're trying to control the situation. They're trying to keep the people who are filming away from what has really been going on, but there are reports coming out there that there are agent provocateurs trying to really push the agenda in Ferguson, and they're not stopping. Now, there's a petition on the White House site right now, and they're calling for the Michael Brown law. They want every police officer to have a camera which cannot be shut off, which will film everything they do. They already have 120,000 signatures, and it was created on August 13th, and that's a lot in this short period of time. Now, of course, the government officials are supposed to look at this once it reaches 100,000, but guess what? Nothing there. No one has said a word. And of course, this is not part of their agenda. They don't want this. They don't want police with cameras on them. No, this is a conditioning effort. This is getting us used to in what is happening right now. Now, we saw I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a video out there of this police officer who said that he's going to pretty much kill anyone, and he was recorded. So basically what happened was he was caught mouthing off that and pointing his gun at peaceful protesters, saying that he will kill any protester, which is completely ridiculous because these police are there to serve and protect. They're not supposed to be pointing weapons at innocent people, at peaceful protesters. Actually, they shouldn't be pointing weapons at anyone until their life is an imminent threat, and there was no threat there whatsoever. And we can see, and I remember when I was growing up, and the police were only allowed to fire back if they were fired upon. And now today it seems like they're firing first. But let me get back to this. So we can see right now he was caught and he was suspended. Now if there was no camera, guess what? We don't know what would have happened at that point. Now Holder is visiting St. Louis and he's going to cure everything there. No, he's actually going to make it worse. But what he said there is very interesting. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder reassured residents in suburban St. Louis that change is coming. Now this is very cryptic. What does this mean? I mean, we heard President Obama say during his campaign, change, we're going to have change. Well, yeah, we had change, but we don't know what that change is. Now everyone in their head thinks, oh, that means we're going to have good change, but I don't think that's what it means. I think something horrific is coming down the road. I think something very different than what everyone believes in change is coming. Not for the good, I think it's coming for the bad, because what we're seeing right now is they are really pushing this agenda. Now we understand that the government officials are trying to disarm the American people. They already have the call out there to remove everyone of their assault rifles or any type of weapon that has magazines. But what's very interesting, and this really doesn't make sense unless you really look into it and think to yourself, why would they want to do this? But there is a bill, H.R. 5344, which is going through Congress that would ban the purchase of body armor. Why would they do that? Think about this. Things that protect you, self-defense, like the backpacks for school children, or bulletproof, blankets and that kind of thing, or bulletproof vests. Why would they want to remove body armor from the people? Does this make any sense unless they don't want the people to protect themselves? Because when this change comes, they want to make sure they have the upper hand. There is absolutely no reason to ban protective gear, something that protects the people. Now it looks like the Missouri governor is going to withdraw the National Guard from Ferguson right now, and I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, because removing the National Guard might be opening the door to more and more of these agent provocateurs trying to push the agenda forward. And of course I think there was bad weather or something in Ferguson, and it seems like things quiet down a little bit, but it seems like something is definitely on the horizon. Now the Homeland Security has put out a warning of National Day of Rage. Now I've also seen these banners, these posters going around of this Purge, which is a movie coming on August 31st, where they're saying, and I think it's in Jacksonville, Florida, and other cities, saying that people should go out and commit crimes. And they started interviewing people in these areas, and people are saying, yes, I know friends that are going to go out on this day and do this. And it just seems like this is a complete setup. They're saying that they don't exactly know where this came from. This could be a complete hoax, but it's very interesting that DHS right now has issued a bulletin drawing attention to the hacktivist group Anonymous, which plans for a nationwide protest against the police shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. The group has called for a National Day of Rage on Thursday to span 38 major U.S. cities. The Threat Management Division of Federal Protective Services issued the bulletin. Currently, there is no indication that protesters are expected to become violent. FPS personnel are reminded that the Department of Homeland Security does not consider nonviolent civil disobedience tactics to constitute criminal activities. Well, that doesn't mean there's not going to be agent provocateurs in this, trying to ramp this up. Now, like I said, an indicator that this thing is going live for martial law is if we see these agent provocateurs in these cities throwing Molotov cocktails, throwing bricks into store windows, and really trying to get the people riled up. And it's just very interesting how all of a sudden This has come out. Now, when Thursday passes, nothing happens. We still have to be on a lookout because, again, we know that just because something is called for on one day doesn't mean it's going to not happen on another day. So we really need to be on a lookout, and this would be a great indicator to let us know that they're really trying to push this forward, because as soon as we see reports coming in that many cities have people rioting and clashing with the police, and people are throwing, Molotov cocktails and bricks and bottles and all the other things, and police are starting to come down on the people, and it's spreading to other cities, they got the green light for the go-ahead to really try to push this as hard as they can to make every city get involved in this. Now, it looks like the EU firms that supply food to Russia are becoming desperate at this point. They're trying to get their food through Switzerland, and Switzerland has rebuffed attempts by some EU food producers to sidestep a Russian ban on food imports from the EU and other Western countries. Basically, if they're labeled from the Alpine country, Russia lets the food in because Switzerland is exempt from the Russian bans right now. And it seems like some of the EU food producers are trying to get through the ban going through Switzerland. And we have to see that a lot of the top producers that send food to Russia are the following. I mean, Germany with $1.83 billion worth of exports, Poland worth $1.55 billion, U.S. $1.54 billion, Netherlands $1.42, France $1.42, Italy $1.34, Spain $1.26 billion. So we can see right now the major countries that are having an economic problem in the Euro area here. And we know the United States is having a major problem, but of course the illusion is keeping everyone fooled about what's really going on here. Now, out in Ukraine, it seems like the humanitarian aid is being checked out, and the Red Cross is going to be delivering the humanitarian aid, and Moscow is calling on the UN Security Council to make a statement about the need of a ceasefire in Ukraine during the delivery of Russian humanitarian aid. The International Committee of the Red Cross said this week that it was awaiting formal security guaranteed for employees escorting the convoy of humanitarian aid. The ICRC has repeatedly stated that security guarantees were the absolute prerequisite for the delivery of humanitarian aid. The Ukrainian side failed to provide the required guarantees for the convoy safe passage into this area. So they're waiting on Kiev, and of course we have reports that there are some type of police forces on the route to where this humanitarian aid is going to go. They might try to do something at this point. Now, there are reports out there saying that the U.S. tried to save Foley, and they tried to get into Syria to save the hostages, but their information was incorrect, and they couldn't find them. And I believe this story is being ramped up right now, trying to convince everyone that now we know that they do have the hostages because we saw Sokolov, and we can see that they're being held in Syria. Now, this is all playing into Syria right now, and they're really building up the war propaganda. I mean, I see UK Prime Minister David Cameron, he is out there calling for a military role in Iraq. Cameron has pledged that Britain would use all assets that we have, including military prowess, to defeat the Islamic State. And he's sending that 8 Tornado jet bombers have already been sent from Cyprus, supposedly to carry out surveillance. He's also looking to put boots on the ground, even though they continually say we don't want boots on the ground. But it seems like we're starting to see a lot more of this mission creep, because right now the U.S. is going to deploy about another 300 troops into Iraq. So if you keep counting it, 200 here, 250 there, 300 here, and they're continually slowly adding more and more soldiers into Iraq. And we're seeing that this is definitely mission creep. Now, of course, we know that this is all being set up and it's being staged to get into Syria, because Syria is their main goal. And we can see right now that the commander of the Islamic State, al-Baghdadi, has fled from Iraq into Syria. Officials said the Islamic commander al-Baghdadi left his headquarters in the northern Iraqi city of Mosul around August 10th, and they said al-Baghdadi fled from Iraq to neighboring Syria as Iraq and the United States intensified their airstrikes. Officials said the Islamic State was moving its fighters out of northern Iraq into Syria. So we can see this is absolutely perfect. They want the Islamic State moving and the leaders into Syria because they're trying to make their case right now of going into Syria. Now, this whole thing about James Foley and this whole video is becoming more and more interesting on what is going on here, because we can start to see that the UK government doesn't want its people looking at this video. And this is a first sign that something must be up with this video. The UK government reminded police of their power to arrest people distributing terrorist literature, including the video of the beheaded American journalist James Foley. And also they're saying you are not allowed to view it or download it, or you could be arrested. And of course people are questioning this, and there's nowhere really in the law that says if you view it you are a terrorist. And I have people from England writing to me saying yes, they are saying this. And we're seeing right now the question is, why don't they want the people looking at it? Because here we are starting to look at it, and we're starting to see a lot of anomalies in this video, and we see Twitter and many other video or social media services starting to take down the video very, very quickly, because I think as we start analyzing it, we see no cuts, we see no blood, it's not really making sense, and it's starting to look like this was completely planned as a false flag event to get us into Iraq, eventually into Syria, then into Iran, and maintain control of the Middle East. And we're seeing that this is really starting to ramp up. Now, of course, in my past reports, I talked about how the borders are open, and we all know the borders are open, and they were going to use this as saying that, yes, the terrorists are coming across, and already that has been started. Now, the government officials are out there saying, yes, this could be used and as terrorists come across the border. They're also saying there's been some communication between the ISIS terrorist connection and with Mexico. Citizens have also warned that the lack of attention to the illegal alien crisis could lead to terrorists coming over. So they're trying to convince everyone, now that our borders have been opened, the terrorists are inside the United States. And we can see they are just continually pushing the propaganda. And as we know, this has been set up for a very long time. Players are already in place. They're waiting for the green light. They're waiting for the go signal. We already know they built up the propaganda all this time, and they are just waiting. State Department spokeswoman Marie Harf said Tuesday that she would not rule out any policy options in response to the Islamic State, including taking action against them in Syria. So here we are already. They are really pushing this as hard as they can, because you have to remember, we are at the end game right now. Europe is collapsing. The United States is collapsing. Forget about the manipulated numbers. That's all it is. It's an illusion. We are collapsing right now. And we're seeing right now that, like Congressman Peter King and other government officials, they are saying right now that the beheading of the American journalist James Foley by the Islamic State is a declaration of war on the United States. This is the first event. I mean, think about the number of events that have occurred during the month of August right now. I mean, it's completely mind-boggling that we've had Ebola, we've had Ferguson, we've had the bombing in Iraq and the cover story of humanitarian aid for the Yazidis. Then we had the decapitation of James Foley, which is a complete phony and a false flag. So we can see right now they are going to escalate this. They are on the road to building this up to get in there. Now, will this do it? Most likely not. They will need more events, and they know it, but they're building the story. They're building the entire false flag story to convince the American people of why we need to go into Iraq, Syria, than Iran. Now, there is more intel coming out, and of course the government officials are saying, yes, the Islamic State is warning that they're going to declare war on America, but what's very interesting is the Islamic State wants the United States to come to the Middle East rather than they come here. Now, why would a terrorist group want the United States to come there? I mean, this just seems a little strange that they're calling the United States to the Middle East with, air power, troops on the ground, unless this is a complete setup to say, listen, we need to go get them and we need to follow them wherever they are. And this is why they're making the call out. And this intel goes on to say that the Islamic State is comprised of thousands of European and American jihadists who fought in Syria in the Civil War and came to Iraq to train as fighters, and then moved over to the Islamic State, and now they're radicalized, and they could be coming back to the United States. Now, they've been using this story for quite a while, and we know that they've been using the propaganda that Syria is the springboard for terrorists, the launching pad for terrorists. So we can see right now they are continually building up this propaganda. They want this to go forward. They want this to happen. In the meantime, what we're seeing is they understand that this collapse is coming faster and faster and faster, and they realize they need to start, taking control of the police forces in the United States. They want to make sure that the people of the United States realize that they are in control, that police force will come down on each individual when they protest or speak out against the government. And this is exactly what it's trying to condition us of. They want everyone to look at this and say, listen, I don't want to protest because I don't want the police, the military forces coming at me like this, so I better not do it. And they're hoping that most of the people are conditioned enough that they will back down during this time period. And they will put you in certain areas. They'll take out their lists that they've been making, and we can see they need total control for this collapse that is coming. Because you have to remember what is going to occur. Of course, we'll have these special events that they're going to create. It will be worse than 9/11. The collapse will continue. It's just a cover that another group or country created the collapse. Of course, they've been telling us we're in a recovery, and this is where the control inside the United States comes, because when the value of the dollar increases and people lose their jobs, people become desperate, rioting happens, and we can see how people react when certain circumstances don't go the way their everyday life goes, and people, flip out, and people become desperate. People need to survive, and they go into a different type of drive, and they push themselves to do things that they normally wouldn't do. And this is why we've been saying, and not just myself, but a lot of people saying, that you need to be prepared. You need to be ready for these types of situations. And we can see over time now that things are really starting to ramp up. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.